Good morning, ladies. Good morning. I hope you're paying attention because we have now moved on to the business continuity plan of working online. How cool is that? It doesn't take away from me. You still get to have me as your teacher. And so what does that mean? That means that all of your work is still due and all of your projects need to be completed this week. So you had a day off, pretty much. And we need to get back to business. We need to finish Essay 19 today. It is imperative that we move forward because you have 2 more tasks to complete. I believe it's about 2 more tasks, right? To complete, and we're moving on. We're finished with this unit. It must be uploaded. I have to upload it to the computer, and it must be complete by, let's look at the date. I'll give you an extra day by Thursday. The entire project must be finished by Thursday. So I'm moving on as usual. And as always, please take notes. Use a pen and a paper and a pencil. And you are writing. That's what I want you to do right now. I need you to write. Okay? So let's open up. Okay, you should be on your computers, on your phone. I don't know where you are, but with pen and paper and pencil, and you are writing. Okay, we're going to continue with what unit are we on? Let's go to my computer. Unit 15. Yes, I believe, yes, we are on unit 15. So you go to the resources folder, as always, AD Business, Unit Learning Resources. Okay. And we are in Unit 15, Business Continuity. We are technically on PowerPoint Part 3. PowerPoint Part 3. And we were talking about the laws. Remember, I covered and I said that the laws put in place what happens with a business continuity. Exactly what's happening now. Do you see how the kingdom has sent out a demand saying that students must learn from the home because this virus is dangerous for everybody. So we don't want to risk the business. So this is now a law. Okay, this is now going in compliance with the laws. So let's look. We were talking about, slide number 6. Let's review. Civil Contingencies Act. Remember, I told you about this, where respondents must continue to perform their routine work, such as whatever it is, using different alternative measures. We also talked a bit about some liabilities, and I asked you what the word liability means. Liability. And I believe when I had shared that word, I believe Rana had something to say about it, and she had said that a liability is something that you owe, okay, something you're responsible for, okay? So let's continue on to this page, slide number 8. We were talking about vital records. So now that we've moved our classes online, it's important that we keep track of the records of your work, your student work, okay, so that you can now still graduate on time. Now, if you use this time poorly, what will happen? You will not graduate, and you would have wasted all of your time. So we still have to push, and we have to be serious in this moment to move forward. Okay, we have to be serious to move forward at this moment. Okay, slide number 9. And I know we're on, we actually covered this entire slide. So I'm just doing a little mini review for you, okay? So how do courts determine liability? This is slide number 10. Business continuity planning and disaster management is enforced by legislation for the reason of involvement of public interest or common good in the company's governmental agencies. In the event of a disaster and the subsequent ineffectiveness of companies' business continuity plan and disaster recovery systems, for example, if a company loses millions of dollars due to interruption in its computerized processing, courts view it as the incapacity of recovery plans to restore the computerized processing and thus impose hefty penalties. Courts impose liability on such companies by multiplying the probability of loss occurring with the magnitude of harm and balancing it against the cost of protection. So, in the end, what is this saying? Who is responsible? How do courts determine liability when a situation happens? Like, for example, let's talk about this business continuity that's happening now. We're not a massive company or something, but if we were producing goods and services, for example, and a disaster happened, how there's billions and millions of dollars that can be lost in this process. So how do companies move forward because of this, right? And so this is what we're talking about. This is exactly what we are talking about. Okay, let's go to part four. And I believe we also started this slide. We are actually on slide number 13 is where we left off. We're on slide number 13. We talked about dealing with a backlog. Okay, and the backlog is stuff that will be pending. Okay, stuff that's pending. That's slide number 12. So I'm looking at Business Continuity Unit 15, Part 4, PowerPoint number 4. Please open it up. Okay, please open it up because we are now moving on to part number 4. We've already started it in the classroom. Now we're just continuing it here in the home. Okay, we're working from the home. Okay. Slide number 13, and you'll have to participate with me, okay? You'll have to write down on a pen, on a paper, some notes. Here we go. Slide number 13, dealing with backlog. Whereas in a larger organization, it will be necessary to involve a range of individuals with a detailed knowledge of the specific activities of the organization. If it is necessary to consult across the organization, there are 3 commonly recognized mechanisms for doing this, each having particular strengths. Workshops, these provide rapid results and an opportunity for hands-on engagement. Questionnaires, these provide large amounts of data, but information quality can be very questionable if not completed with consistency. Interviews, these can provide very good information, but can be time-consuming and output can vary in detail and format. So dealing with a backlog, the way we want to sort of resolve this is to share information. Okay, so in this particular situation we're in right now, where we have now transitioned to an online class, there will have to be some different ways of handling this situation. And how are we going to handle communicating? How are we going to handle group projects? How are we going to handle moving forward when the class is online? Okay, so we talked about a risk assessment. Remember that? Slide number 14. And we also jumped to slide number 15. So we said that, when business undertakes a risk assessment, they will usually follow the following steps, right? Step 1, and then we went through all the steps, right? We went through step 1 to step 6, right? We also looked at the risk assessment matrix. Step 7, okay. These are all things that we already did in the classroom. So hopefully you've now been caught up and you are following me. Are you following me? Okay, I hope you are. Okay, so let's go to slide number, slide number 20. Okay, when we're talking more about risk assessments, you just did a risk assessment. Remember at the event, you were trying to decide if there were things that were going to harm customers or yourself when you were participating in the event. So let's continue. Slide number 20, part 4, unit 15. When relevant risks and hazards have been identified, submit a report or plan to the steering committee, senior management, or sponsor of the program, outlining the recommendations to prevent, prepare, or mitigate, lessen the effects of the disaster. The BIA identifies the financial and operational loss of functions over time and establishes the recovery time objectives, critical functions, and processes. Business impacts must be defined in light of business objectives. Slide 21. Actions after identifying the risk. So when the business figures out that there are certain risks involved, loss of infrastructure, loss of technology. For example, in this situation that you are home, you may have saved some of your work on the laptop computers, on the desktops at the college. That's a problem, right? That's a risk assessment, meaning that you can't access your work. So what does that mean that you'll have to do? You'll have to now we have to figure out actions for identifying the risk. And then we'll have to figure out sort of like a solution. What would you do if you have your work on the computers in the college? Well, 1, you'll have to go to the college either and get it, or 2, you'll have to do it all over again. All right? So let's go to slide 21. Transfer, actions for identifying risk. Transfer. Some risks, our best response may be to transfer them. This might be done by conventional insurance or conceptual arrangements, or it might be done by paying a third party to take the risk in another way. This option is particularly good for mitigating financial risk or risk to assess. Terminate. In some circumstances, it might be appropriate to change, suspend, or terminate the service, product, activity, function, or process. This option ought only to be considered where there is no conflict with the organization's objective, statutory compliance, and stakeholder expectation. This approach is most likely to be considered where a service, product, activity, function, or process has a limited lifespan. Okay, so we're talking about 2 ideas and concepts here. Write this down. Transfer. TRANSFER. Please, I hope you're looking at PowerPoint part 4, unit 15, slide number 21. Okay, write this down. Transfer. Okay, transfer is one of the ways a company can identify some of the risk. So you may transfer some of the risk to someone else. So for example, in this situation where we are working away from each other, not directly in the classroom, we're going to transfer some of the risk to an online platform, right? So right now I am sending you this lesson via a video, right? I'm using audio, I'm using video. So I'm transferring, okay, the risk to a third party. Okay, but because we're not dealing with any products and services at this moment, we may need to either terminate. Please write the word down. Terminate. TERMINATE. Terminate the circumstances, right? So if we had something that was going to spoil, if this was a business that we were providing fresh tomatoes, for example, chances are maybe the tomatoes would spoil and we wouldn't be able to, outsource or get the tomatoes to the consumers sooner, for example. So in this circumstance, there might be some money being lost because we will now then terminate. Okay, we will terminate that product, okay, from the process. And we can either find a substitute, move on to a different alternative. Okay, let's go to slide number 22. In many cases, a combination of BCM and insurance will give your organization the best chance for recovering quickly. This view is supported by the British Insurance Brokers Association, who state insurers have recognized the benefits of risk management and business continuity planning and will offer premiums that reflect suitable protected business, right? So there are insurance policies that might be in place to address some of these business continuity issues. Slide number 23. This stage of the business continuity planning process is about identifying the action that you can take to maintain the critical activities that underpin the delivery of your organization's products and services. Having previously determined the RTO for each critical activity, you now need to develop a strategy for meeting it. This involves taking appropriate action to mitigate the loss of the resources that you identified. The list below provides some of the tactics that you could adopt to protect your resources, but should not be seen as an exhaustive list. Let's check out the list. We don't have the list with us at the moment. Let's see. Hold on. People, premises. I think we also covered this in the class already, right? Technology. We did this already. Okay, no worries. We're reviewing. Okay, we're still reviewing. We're moving fast in the class. Look at us. We're so great. We are so great as a team, as a class. We move so fast. So if you didn't catch any of these things that I was saying, because I know you girls were trying to distract me when I was teaching this subject, so I myself am getting a little confused as well, but this is good review. So if you don't even know what I'm talking about, please follow along, and we're writing. We're talking about the business continuity planning process, okay? Slide number 23. This stage of the business continuity planning process is about identifying an action that you can take to maintain the critical activities that underpin the delivery of your organization's product or services. Having previously determined the RTO for each critical activity, you need to develop a strategy for meeting it. This involves taking appropriate action to mitigate the loss of the resources that you have identified. The list below provides some of the tactics that you could adopt to protect your resources but should not be seen as an exhaustive list. So the thing is, we want to continue the business like we are right now in this situation, in this same situation we're in. We need to continue classroom. We need to continue learning. How are we going to do it? How are we going to solve the issues of working virtually? Okay, this is the key questions that we're going to have. First, let's look at people. Okay, so slide number 24. People. Inventory of staff skills not utilized within their existing roles to enable redeployment. Process mapping and documentation to allow staff to undertake roles with which they are familiar. Multi-skill training for each individual. Cross-training for individuals across a number of individuals. Succession planning. Okay. Use of slide number 25. Use of third-party support backed by contractual agreements. Geographical separation of individuals or groups with core skills can reduce the likelihood of losing all of those capable of undertaking a specific role. Premises. The relocation of staff to other accommodations owned by your organization, such as training facilities, displacement of staff performing less urgent business processes with staff performing a high priority activity. Care must be taken when using this option that backlogs of the less. Slide number 26. Urgent work do not become unmanageable. Remote working, this can be working from home or working from other locations. Use premises provided by the organization, including those provided by other third-party specialists. Alternative source of plant, machinery, or other equipment. Technology. Maintain the same technology at different locations that would not be affected by the same business disruption. Slide number 27. Holding older equipment as emergency replacement or spaces. Revert to manual methods It is common to have automated workflow systems to ship product to customers. If the automated system consisting of order entry, order picking, invoicing, and payment processing is not available, a manual approach might work. Consider having a paper form that could be completed that would move through the organization into the warehouse to pick the order and onto finance to prepare an invoice. Information, slide number 28. Ensure data is backed up and is kept off-site. Essential documentation is stored securely, fireproof, safe. Copies of essential documentations are kept elsewhere. Suppliers and partners, storage of additional supplies at other locations, dual or multi-sourcing of materials, identification of alternative suppliers. Slide number 29. Encouraging or requiring suppliers, partners to have a valid business continuity capability, significant penalty clause on supply contracts, stakeholders, mechanisms in place to provide information to stakeholders, arrangement to ensure vulnerable groups are accommodated. Slide number 30. Stage number 5, developing and implementing BCM response. This stage of the BCM, which is business continuity management, response is concerned with the development and implementation of appropriate plans and arrangements to ensure the management of an incident and continuity and recovery of critical activities that support key products and services. The number of plans that the content of those will vary from organization to organization and should reflect the structure and culture of the organization and the complexity of its critical activities. Based on the factors, an organizations may choose to have separate incident management, business continuity, and business recovery plans, or separate plans covering a particular part of your organization, premise, or scenario. Slide number 31. For a very small organization, a single plan which incorporates all the above elements may be sufficient. The key point to remember is that in totality, the plans and supplementing materials should provide all of the information the organization needs to ensure that it can manage and mediate immediate incidents, and continue to recover the critical activities identified in understanding the organization. It is also important to ensure that your plans are easily accessible and copies could be kept on or off site. Stage number 6. Some organizations form a single team called the crisis management team, and they determine what individuals or departments within the organization will do to help recover from the disruption. A more effective approach involves formation of individual recovery teams arranged along departmental lines. Each team is comprised of a leader, an alternative leader, and essential staff. Slide number 33. The team leaders activate their plans and notify their team members. They are responsible for overseeing the implementation of their team's recovery plans. Only employees supporting critical roles are needed immediately after a disruption. Others can be assigned to support, or they may be prolonged. 34. Once the analysis is completed, you will compile a formal and complete plan that will be maintained. It should include the risk assessment, business impact analysis, and team recovery plans, contact information, and strategies to recover critical operations within the recovery time objective. Slide number 35. Stage 8, train recovery teams. All employees will need to be trained in some aspect of the plan, even if it is simply to make an awareness of its existence. The planning process should accomplish most of the orientation and training required to implement the plan. Those with an active role in the recovery should understand all aspects of their duties and all components of the plan. This will include how teams will communicate with each other and their responsibilities after a disaster. Slide number 36, stage 9, implementation, exercise the plan. No plan is complete until every element has been subjected to some type of testing, exercise, or stimulation. Simulation is probably a better term because simulation is probably a better term. Simulation is probably a better term. Simulation. Please, another vocabulary word, write it down. Simulation, SIMULATION. Simulation, slide number 36. We are on Unit 15, Part 4. Simulation is probably a better term because to many of us, exercise is not something done willingly. All portions of the plan must be simulated and contact information verified. A simulation must be planned in detail if it is to be effective and not disrupt normal operations. At a minimum, plans should be simulated annually. Simulation is essentially just to carry out a full-fledged backup plan as if something were to happen. So when we do the fire drills, we actually leave the building, right? And we go to our assembly point. So that is called a simulation. It's a simulation. We're doing it. We're doing it for real. So simulation should be carried out annually. Continuing with stage number 9, slide number 37. Disaster recovery plans must be living documents. Employee and supplier contact numbers change often and must be kept current in the plan. This information must be examined quarterly. The plans must be reviewed annually to determine whether they still match the overall strategic direction of the organization and changed accordingly. In large organizations, the team leaders are generally required to keep their plans up to date with their efforts audited by the recovery. Slide number 38. Stage 9, implementation, exercise the plan. Coordinator or by the internal auditor. If a member of a business continuity team leaves the organization, there should be a notification, perhaps from human resources, that a critically important resource needs to be replaced to support the disaster recovery program. When employees understand that a company has contingency plans in place, they tend to feel that the company is organized, positioned for success, and concerned for their safety. Okay, so I know I just read a whole lot, and I wanted to just kind of read it just so that you get a feel for completing this PowerPoint and hearing some of the terminologies. Now, I understand that you may not know every single thing that I'm saying, and I may be talking very, very fast. And you know I need to move very fast because that's what I do, right? So now to take a step back, and let's kind of backtrack and just sort of see what all I was talking about. So what I'm trying to say in all that I'm talking about, okay, let's go back to the beginning. Stage 1, okay? Stage 3. Okay, where is stage 1? Stage 1, which is slide number 3. The first step in the business continuity planning, okay, is the business impact analysis, the BIA. We wrote this down, and I saw Meta was writing. I saw Faye was writing. I saw Malark was writing. I hope you are writing now. Business impact analysis, slide number 3, part 4, unit 15, slide number 3. 1, 2, 3. The first step in business continuity planning is business impact analysis. Okay, every company must understand what it does and how it does it. A business impact analysis is the process of analyzing business functions and the effect that a disruption might have upon them. Knowing this will help organizations develop appropriate business continuity plans and other contingency strategies. Another great vocabulary word here, contingency, CONTINGENCY strategies, contingency strategies. Okay, so let's see what's great about this. All right, so what we're talking about is a company must have a plan. And so what we're saying is that there are stages in developing a plan. Okay, so right now we are in the middle of a business continuity plan. I think this is so perfect for you right now. You have no idea how perfect this is happening for you. I mean, it's a very bad thing that we are experiencing the coronavirus, and it is very bad, but you actually get to go through a real life simulation of a business continuity plan. You are doing the backup plan, the alternative. This is not the way we want it to be. Okay, so when we're talking about business continuity, it's not necessarily sometimes mean that the business flows the exact same way. If there was a fire and it burned down the whole building, right? There has to be a different way to do the business. If it was a restaurant, for example, and there was a fire that occurred at a restaurant, how would the business continue, right? So you may say to me, well, we might want to order online, have the restaurant move the team to a kitchen that prepares food online for customers, and the business can continue. Is it the best way? No. It's not the best way of doing the business, but it's an alternative way. It's a continuity way. It's a continuation of the business. So the word continuation means to move, to go forward, right? Continuing something. We're moving something forward, like we're moving this classroom forward. This is a continuation. This is the college continuation for your business class, right? So we're continuing the business, all right? So hopefully you kind of can see with this very real life example of a business continuity plan moving forward in action. The class has now moved online. Okay. So again, let's look at slide number 3 on the PowerPoint, unit 15, part 4. So the first step is to do a business impact analysis, right? How is this going to work? And then we look at different ways of looking at that, right? Some of these things include looking at all the parties involved, the suppliers, the resources, the clients, other third parties, the assets involved, okay? There needs to be some sort of time period to move this thing forward. And then we started to go into recoveries, okay? And then we had some different steps. And all of these things are just ways of moving the business forward. So we look at the people, we look at the premise, the technology, the information, the suppliers, the partners. Okay, we're going to deal with the backlog. We're dealing with risk assessment. We do a risk assessment after that. We decide what is the problem in the business at this point. Slide number 14, we're looking at the risk assessment. Slide number 15, you look at the changes that might happen in the business, the disruption that occurs in the business, the loss of suppliers, the loss of different things. Maybe students might say, you know what, I can't take this stress. I don't want to continue working. I'm going to wait until the college reopens. I don't know. So this is how real the situation is, because we don't know what will happen and what risk the business will take, okay? So then we look at a risk assessment, and then we had moved on to different ways of handling the risk. We might transfer, we might terminate some things, we might transfer responsibilities, okay? And then we look at different stages now. We're looking at the process for identifying the actions that needs to be taken. And so we looked at different ways of handling the business continuity management strategy, BCM, business continuity management strategy. And then we talked about information and suppliers and shareholders, stakeholders, and we talked about all of these things in the unit, right? And the last thing is what we ended on was doing a simulation, a real life example. And you're doing it. You're actually doing the real life example now. We didn't expect that this would happen, right? We didn't expect that we'll have to continue the business over the internet, right? So this is a simulation. It's really the real thing. It's not a simulation, because a simulation is if we're doing a drill, like a fire drill, for example. That's a simulation. But this is like an imposed simulation, okay? We're working the contingency plan, the backup plan now. Okay. All right. I hope you're following. Don't lose me. Okay. We're going to move to slide number 5. All right. Which is the last PowerPoint for this unit, unit 15. All right. So we're going to move on to there. So I'll give you a 5-minute break. Okay. You could just stop the video right now. Just stop it. and then 5 minutes, return, and we will continue. We're moving on to Unit 15, Part 5. We're going to be talking about working effectively in the business continuity context, okay? Unit 15, Part 5. Please be ready in 5 minutes.